Alright, I've got the edges beveled, the die is touched up, and like I said, I'm not going to burnish these edges until after it's stitched. That way it's good and stable. And down at the bottom here, the glue didn't quite hold. That's okay for stitching, that's fine. But for burnishing the edge, I want to make sure that edge is in place and stable. Now this part's already been stitched, and what I did is on the inside I grooved it so that the stitches would sit below the leather. That way when the gun's being put in and drawn, it won't scrape against the stitches. And now I've got this part stitched, so I'm going to go ahead and set it up in my clamp. I got a piece of leather to protect it. This is milled veg tan, so it's soft leather, and it'll protect the holster, so it won't get damaged. I'll just clamp it in there. And how much thread to use? There's one formula you can use, is you take your thread and you lay it along that stitch line. Then you got to figure out how much thread you'll need relative to the thickness of the leather. And this is some thick leather. Generally, like if you're stitching a couple of hunks of 9-ounce together, 4 times will be like exactly the right amount, but you'll need more just so you have some extra thread to pull it tight at the end and do your back stitching. Usually though, I don't measure it. Like that's 4 layers right there. I'll generally just take it and pull out a double arm's length, and then a little bit more. Thread is relatively cheap, but what really sucks is when you're almost to the end of a stitch line and you don't have enough thread, and you got to pull it all out and start over, or you got to try to put a splice in it without making it too unsightly. On my stuff, I might try doing that, but if it's something I'm making for somebody else, nah, that's not good enough. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lock my needle on. I just put it through the eye. Then I'll put the thread flat on my work surface. Give it about 1 inch or so. Pierce the thread and then pull it down on the needle. Trying to keep it neat. Yep, neatness counts. I keep talking about the details. It's the details that really make the difference. Like a person can go out to his local gun shop and get a cheap holster that's slapped together in a factory. It's a perfectly serviceable holster. So why should he spend extra on something that's custom made or handmade? Or at least, why should he wait the additional time it takes? It's in the details. It's got to look really good to be worth it. Anyway, I'm going to start at this end. Oh, that's snug. I don't like finishing my stitches at the end that has a lot of stress, so I figure out which end, where is the area that's going to have most of the stress. I always figure that the top of a holster, where the gun's going to be like put in and drawn out a lot, that'll have more stress than the bottom of the holster, because that basically the bottom is just to cover the muzzle and protect it. So I'm going to start at the top up here. Put my needle through. Oops. And then even out my thread. Put a needle in. Give it a little bit of a wiggle, just to temporarily stretch that leather out. The second needle goes on top of the first needle, and then I'll pull the thread back and put the second needle under the first thread. Give the thread a little tug to make sure I didn't pierce it, and then pull that needle on through. Oopsie. Try not to hook anything on the way. Now don't strangle it, but you can just give it a little snug, and this is slipping. That's not going to work. Let's try it the other way. Okay. Snug that down. Okay, make sure my needles are even, and they're not. So that gives me another chance to make sure that this is all even. I don't like to do the sanding on my edges after I stitched, because the little bits of sawdust and sanding residue stick to the stitches. Yeah, stick to the thread. And being that the thread, the stitch line, the color of the thread is all part of the design element, you want to make sure it looks good. It's alright. I'll go in another hole, do the same thing, put the needle through. This needle goes on top, pull it on through, pull that back, put the second needle under the first thread, tug it to make sure I didn't pierce it, and then pull that on through. Give it a little snug. And just keep doing that all the way down the line. That one goes there, that one goes on top. Now, if I was stitching on this end and stitching back, I would be doing it the other way around. The second needle would go on top. But since I'm starting away from me and coming toward me, the second needle goes on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And when we come back, we're going to go ahead and do our back stitch. Well, we're almost to the end here, which means pretty soon we're going to be doing our back stitching to finish this off. I'm doing it the same way. I did the same way all the way down. I put the needle through, give it a little wiggle, put this one on top, turn it over, and put that underneath, give it a tug to make sure I didn't pierce it, and pull it on through. Down to our last hole here. Now we're going to take it out of the clamp. And my light is flickering. And do our back stitch. To do that, basically I look at the stitch and see which way it's aligned. And I can tell that this one goes underneath. Push that on through. Going to need some help. Got my smooth jawed needle nose, well, flat nose pliers. Pull that on through. And this one goes underneath that. Yeah. Put the needle in, push it against my work surface. And there it is. And again, use my needle nose pliers, pull that on through. Snug it up. Okay. Now I like to do this 3-4 times. And that's what I mean. I don't like to end my stitching at an area that has a lot of stress. Because even though this will never ever come loose, I don't want to put additional stress on it and take that chance. Oh, look at there, I missed. Don't want to do that. Then you have one big wide stitch where there shouldn't ought to be a big wide stitch. And even though most people will never notice it, I'll know it's there. And it will just bug me to no end. Flip it off. Burn the ends, angling the work away so as you don't scorch it. And honestly, out of all the different lighters I have, just a little disposable butane seems to work best for me. Now once that's done, I'll take my little hammer. This is actually a bottle opener. Corkscrew hammer. So it's not a fancy high dollar leather specific hammer, but it works for me. And basically just and what that does is it helps to close those holes up that you stretched out earlier. Anyway, here's your stitch line. And next up, we're going to go ahead and burnish this edge. See you then.